Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, who would have thought in this great country we would have seen the things we have over this past year? Who would have thought we'd see the President of the United States fire the CEO of General Motors? Who would have thought we, the taxpayers, would own General Motors? Who would have thought that we would see this Congress pass a so-called $700 billion stimulus package that has done the first thing to stimulate economic growth? Who would have thought in the United States of America we'd have a federal government pay-czar telling private American citizens how much money they can make? Who would have thought in this great country we'd have a $1.4 trillion deficit, a $12 trillion national debt? And now, Mr. Chairman, who would have thought this Congress and this administration would again attempt to ram through this health care bill using a partisan reconciliation process? Simply put, Mr. Chairman, the American people have had enough. They told Democrats no in August, no in September. They told them no in Thanksgiving, no on Christmas when they tried to pass this bill. They said no when the Democrats wanted to do it by the State of the Union, and they're going to say no tomorrow when thousands of Americans come to Washington again to say enough is enough. During the past year, I have traveled around our district throughout Ohio. I've seen firsthand the emergence of a grassroots movement fueled in large part by the arrogant and out-of-control federal government. Millions of Americans from every walk of life have stood up, in many cases for the first time, to make their voices heard. They gather in town squares, they organize, they pray, and they've marched on Washington. Far from the dangerous extremists the other side and the elite media may characterize them as, these are ordinary people, moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas who believe that America is an exceptional nation. They are freedom-loving Americans who feel like their government is ignoring them. They work hard every day so that their kids and their grandkids can have life a little better than they did. And they believe that there are ideals and principles that make this country special, and they see those principles being assaulted every day in Washington. I've been to town hall meetings and gatherings in town squares where our founding documents have been distributed and even read aloud. And no matter how many times I hear them, I'm always moved by the principles they promote. And I would argue the Declaration of Independence, next to Scripture, the words that start that document that started this great nation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I think it's interesting to note the order, and we've all heard this before, but the order the founders placed the rights they chose to mention. Can you pursue happiness? Can you go after your goals and your dreams, those things that have meaning and significance to you, if you first don't have liberty, if you first don't have freedom? And do you ever experience true liberty, true freedom, if government doesn't protect your most fundamental right, your right to life? In my time in politics, I've been strengthened by the majority of Americans who believe, like I do, that life is precious and it's a sacred gift from God. And over that time, whatever disagreements there were with those of us who don't share those beliefs, there was a shared understanding that federal dollars should not be used to take innocent human life. Since 1976, the Hyde Amendment has done just that. Under long-standing policy, no federal dollars are used to pay for abortion or abortion services. The Senate-passed health care bill would dramatically change that. It represents the largest threat to innocent human life since the Roe v. Wade Supreme Court decision. Fortunately, there's another way. When the House passed its own health care bill this past November, we included the Stupak Amendment. The amendment simply says that no federal dollars can go to pay for abortion or subsidize a plan that covers this procedure. This continues the current policy under the Hyde Amendment and makes sure that it is permanently applied to any health care reform law. This overwhelmingly passed the House with the support of all but one Republican and 1/4 of the Democrat caucus. The motion I'm offering today is a restatement of the Stupak-Pitts Amendment. It amends the Senate bill. This is important. The will of this House on this amendment has been clear. It would be irresponsible for this committee to pass out reconciliation instructions without this important amendment being included. And not only is it the will of this body, but of the American people. Polling in Ohio and across the nation indicates that 70% of Americans are opposed to their federal dollars being used to pay to take the life of an unborn child. I've heard some people say that the life provisions in the Senate bill are adequate, that they can vote for the Senate bill and continue to claim the pro-life label. That simply is inaccurate. The Senate bill appropriates $7 billion for community health centers, many of which are located in districts we represent, and this $7 billion is not subject to the Hyde Amendment protections because the funding is not in the HHS appropriations bill. The Senate bill also authorizes tax subsidies for plans that cover abortion. This is a slap in the face to pro-life Americans who will now be forced to pay for this procedure. By adopting this motion, the House will send a strong message that at its most basic level, real health care reform respects and protects human life. We sent that signal in November when the House passed the Stupak Amendment. Its principles must be included in any fix that is worked out in the future. That is why this committee must adopt this motion to ensure that any bill that becomes law has airtight and absolute protections for human life. I, along with my pro-life colleagues, encourage House leaders to continue working towards that goal. Just 10 days ago, and I'll end with this, Mr. Chairman, former Buckeye and NFL star Chris Spielman stood before a packed house in Columbus, Ohio. There he was, one of the toughest guys to ever play the game of football, recounting a very tender and touching story about a challenge he and his wife, Stephanie, faced a few years ago. Chris and Stephanie were in the midst of Stephanie's very public bout with cancer. She was 2 years cancer-free when she came to Chris with the heart-dropping news that a husband and dad don't want to hear. Something's happening, she told him. I don't feel right. I need to see a doctor. What they learned was that Stephanie was pregnant. And that would normally be joyous news, but because of her cancer, they were faced with a unique challenge that tested their faith and sent a message to each of us. You see, Stephanie was on a drug, Herceptin, for her cancer, and they were told that a baby had never been born to a mom on that drug. They were given three choices: stay on the drug and risk losing the baby, terminate the pregnancy, or go off the drug and risk losing both mom and baby. They chose life, and today, as Chris would put it, he has a beautiful 7-year-old little girl that he's crazy about. Mr. Chairman, in this debate, we have an even greater choice to make. We're not just making a decision for our own families, but for millions of American families. The pro-life majority in this country has made it clear that we will not allow our values to be hijacked by this debate. On the issues of life, we are about to cast career-defining votes. Rarely in public service is the choice so clear or the stakes higher. Now is the time for such choosing. I urge my colleagues to choose life and support this motion. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield the balance of our time to Mr. Adderholt.